Welcome to Moonlight Audiobook. Wherever in the world you're watching from, whether it's morning, evening, or deep into the quiet hours of the night, I'm truly glad you're here. I'm your host, Julian, and here, under the soft glow of moonlight, we do things a little differently. This is your space to slow down, to step away from the noise, to pour a cup of something warm, tea, coffee, or perhaps something a little stronger, and lose yourself in stories that linger long after the last word is spoken. Every tale you hear on this channel has been chosen to pull you in, whether it's a chilling mystery, a timeless classic, or a journey through shadows and secrets. So, take a deep breath, get comfortable, dim the lights, and let your thoughts drift as the pages come alive. Chapter 1. Scene opens in Poirot's study. The room is dimly lit, the fire crackling softly in the corner, casting flickering shadows across the space. A heavy silence fills the air as Hercule Poirot, the famous detective, sits at his desk, his hands folded neatly in front of him. His sharp eyes are focused on a letter in front of him, an invitation. The camera slowly zooms in on the envelope, sealed with a deep crimson wax bearing the emblem of an ornate mask. Poirot's fingers delicately break the seal, revealing the contents of the letter. He reads aloud to himself. Poirot, muttering as he reads, "You are cordially invited to the masquerade ball of the season. Come unmask the truth." He pauses, the words lingering in the air. Poirot leans back in his chair, eyes narrowing as he carefully considers the invitation. A small, knowing smile crosses his lips. Poirot, softly. A masquerade. How curious. A ball where the truth is promised to be revealed, but behind masks lies hide. This is no ordinary invitation. No, this is a challenge. And I, Hercule Poirot, shall never back down from a challenge. The door to the study creaks open, and Captain Hastings enters, holding a tray with 2 cups of tea. His cheerful, easygoing demeanor contrasts sharply with Poirot's calculating presence. Hastings, smiling. "Good evening, Poirot. I trust you've been keeping yourself busy? You seem lost in thought." Poirot looks up at Hastings, his sharp features softened by a slight smile. "Poirot, I have received an invitation, Hastings. A most intriguing one. It promises a masquerade ball and a chance to unmask the truth. What do you think of that?" Hastings, raising an eyebrow. "A masquerade? Sounds like the perfect place for mystery and intrigue. It could be an opportunity for some excitement, eh?" Poirot, nodding slowly. "Indeed. But you see, Hastings, it is not merely the revelry of a masquerade that intrigues me. It is the truth hidden beneath these masks. The invitation itself tells me that someone is concealing something significant. It is time to uncover it." Poirot stands, straightening his jacket with meticulous care. He walks over to the window and looks out into the night. "Poirot, you see, Hastings, in a masquerade, everyone wears a mask. But beneath those masks, there are secrets. And it is my duty to uncover those secrets. The game is afoot, mon ami." Hastings. "So, we're going, then?" Poirot, smiling. "We must, Hastings. The truth is waiting for us. And I do not intend to let it slip away." The scene transitions to the grand ballroom, where the masquerade ball is being held. The camera moves slowly through the crowd, capturing guests in elaborate costumes, their masks obscuring their identities. Music plays softly in the background, and laughter fills the air. Poirot and Hastings enter, surveying the opulent surroundings. Hastings, looking around in awe. "Quite the grand affair, Poirot. Look at all the costumes, every one more extravagant than the last. This is a night full of secrets, for sure." Poirot, his eyes sharp, observing the guests. Indeed, Hastings. But behind every mask, someone is hiding more than just their face. Every movement, every glance, every word holds meaning. Tonight, we must pay attention to everything. Poirot's gaze falls on a woman in a black gown, her mask adorned with delicate silver filigree. She stands alone, observing the crowd. There's something about her, an air of mystery that captures Poirot's attention. Poirot, quietly to Hastings. Look at her, Hastings. The woman in black. She is the one who interests me most. Hastings, following Poirot's gaze. She certainly seems aloof. Do you think she's involved in whatever is going on here? Poirot. Perhaps. But remember, Hastings, in a masquerade, it is often the quietest ones who hold the most dangerous secrets. The woman in black catches Poirot's gaze for just a moment, then turns away, disappearing into the crowd. Poirot watches her for a moment longer before his attention shifts to a man in a white tuxedo, who is standing near the bar. He seems to be deep in conversation with another guest, but his posture suggests tension. Poirot, studying the man in white. Notice him, Hastings. The man in white. There is something about him. He stands apart from the others, as though he is waiting for something. Hastings. Do you think he's important? Poirot, with a glint in his eye. Important? Perhaps. Or perhaps he is simply trying to stay out of the way. Either way, I believe he is connected to the mystery tonight. Poirot and Hastings continue to observe the guests, noting every detail, every interaction. The music swells, and the guests begin to dance, their laughter mingling with the soft notes of the orchestra. But Poirot remains focused, his eyes scanning the room with precision. As the night unfolds, Poirot's attention is drawn to a subtle shift in the atmosphere. The laughter grows louder, and some of the guests become more animated, while others seem uneasy. The first scream pierces the air, sharp and blood-curdling. The music stops abruptly, and the room falls into stunned silence. Poirot, his voice calm but firm. Stay here, Hastings. I must see what has happened. Poirot moves quickly toward the source of the scream, where a young woman in a lavender gown is trembling, pointing toward the balcony. Poirot approaches her, his presence steady and reassuring. Poirot. Mademoiselle, what is it? What has happened? Woman in lavender gown, gasping, her voice frantic. He's dead. The man in the crimson mask. He's lying on the floor. He's dead. Poirot's face hardens as he assesses the situation. The room is filled with shock and confusion, but Poirot remains calm. He gestures for Hastings to stay with the woman, then moves toward the balcony where the body lies. As Poirot approaches, the camera focuses on the man in the crimson mask, his body still and lifeless. Poirot crouches beside him, inspecting the body closely. No wounds, no signs of struggle. His eyes narrow, studying every detail. Poirot, muttering to himself. How strange. No marks of violence. No weapon. A death without a clear cause. Poirot examines the mask closely. There is a faint scratch on the edge, barely noticeable, but it is enough to catch his attention. Poirot. This mask, it is not what it seems. There is something more to this death than meets the eye. Poirot, addressing the guests, who have gathered around the balcony, whispering nervously. Ladies and gentlemen, I must ask that no one leave this room. Someone among us is a murderer, and until the truth is revealed, no one is to leave. The guests exchange nervous glances, but no one protests. Poirot's eyes scan the room, noting the subtle shifts in behavior. Some guests are more composed, while others are visibly shaken. Poirot, with authority. We will begin the investigation immediately. But remember, someone is hiding the truth. And tonight, I shall uncover it. Chapter 2. The scene opens in the same room, now shrouded in a heavy silence. The once jovial atmosphere of the masquerade ball has turned dark and tense. Guests, dressed in elaborate costumes, stand in small, uneasy clusters, whispering among themselves. Poirot stands at the center of the room, his sharp eyes scanning every face with precision. He is calm, but the tension in the air is palpable. Poirot, his voice firm, cutting through the whispers. Ladies and gentlemen, we are faced with a most disturbing situation. A man has been murdered, and the murderer is still among us. No one will leave this room until I have uncovered the truth. Poirot's words hang in the air, and the guests grow quiet, their nervous glances darting from one person to another. They are all aware that something has gone horribly wrong, but they do not yet know who among them is responsible for the death of the man in the crimson mask. Poirot's eyes sweep over the group of guests. Some look like they are trying to hide their fear, while others seem genuinely shocked by the events that have unfolded. Poirot steps forward, his gaze piercing. Poirot, addressing the crowd. Tonight, the masquerade has become something more. It is now a stage for secrets to be revealed. But these secrets, they are dangerous, and I must unmask them, one by one. Hastings, standing beside Poirot, watches the room carefully. He is both intrigued and slightly uneasy. Poirot, on the other hand, is in his element, his mind already working through the possibilities. Poirot turns to Hastings, speaking in a low voice. Poirot, quietly to Hastings. Do you see it, Hastings? The nervous glances, the subtle shifts in posture? Each of these guests holds a key to the mystery, but which one will lead us to the truth? Hastings. Some of them look guilty, Poirot. But how do you know which one? Poirot, with a slight smile. Ah, mon ami, it is in the details. The way a man shifts his weight when questioned, the way a woman avoids eye contact. These small things reveal more than any words could. Poirot pauses, his sharp eyes scanning the room. He steps forward and addresses the first guest, an older man in a red mask, who stands nervously at the edge of the group. The man avoids Poirot's gaze, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. Poirot. Monsieur, I must begin with you. You seem quite unsettled. Perhaps you can tell me where you were when the scream was heard. Red Mask Man, glancing at Poirot, his voice shaky. I was near the window, looking outside. I didn't hear the scream at first. I thought it was just the music, but then, people started running toward the balcony. Poirot observes the man carefully. His hands are trembling slightly, and his posture is rigid. Poirot knows that something doesn't quite add up. Poirot, calmly. And when you saw the body, monsieur, what did you do? Red Mask Man, fidgeting. I didn't know what to do. I stayed where I was. I didn't want to draw attention to myself. Poirot, leaning forward slightly. Ah, monsieur, you were afraid. You didn't want to get involved, did you? The man in the red mask hesitates, and for a moment, Poirot sees a flicker of guilt in his eyes. But the man quickly looks away, shaking his head. Red Mask Man. I didn't want to get in the way. It was too late. Someone else would help. Poirot stands back, his gaze fixed on the man. He doesn't believe the story. He has learned enough to know that there is more to this man's involvement. But for now, he moves on. Poirot. I see. We shall revisit your story later, monsieur. For now, I must speak to others. Poirot turns toward the woman in the golden mask, who is standing near the corner, her posture regal but stiff. She watches Poirot with a quiet intensity, but there is something about her that feels off. Poirot steps toward her, his eyes narrowing as he approaches. Poirot, addressing the woman. Mademoiselle, you have been quite composed throughout this entire ordeal. Tell me, where were you when the scream was heard? Golden Mask Woman, with a calm but distant voice. I was speaking with Monsieur in the black mask. We were discussing the decorations for the ball. It was nothing unusual. Poirot, raising an eyebrow. Nothing unusual? And you heard the scream, but did not rush to investigate. The woman's face remains unreadable, but Poirot notices her slight hesitation. She looks away briefly, and Poirot senses she is withholding something. Golden Mask Woman. I didn't see anyone move toward the body at first. It didn't seem like anyone was in danger. So, I stayed where I was. Poirot, leaning in slightly. And you, mademoiselle, are certain of this? You were not at all curious about the scream? Or perhaps, like others here, you already knew what had happened? Golden Mask Woman, stiffly. I told you, Poirot, I knew nothing. I was just enjoying the evening like everyone else. Poirot watches her carefully, noting the tension in her voice. He does not believe her, but there is more to uncover, and he knows that patience is key. He moves on without pressing further for now. Poirot, calmly. Very well, mademoiselle. But do not forget, you may have more to say as the night progresses. Poirot steps back and scans the room. There is something in the air, an unspoken connection between all the guests, something that binds them together. He senses that the key to solving the mystery lies in the details, in the relationships and the unspoken truths that everyone is trying to hide. Poirot, addressing the room. Now that I have questioned a few of you, I believe it is time to speak with more of you. We must uncover the truth together, step by step. Poirot's eyes fall upon a man in a crimson mask who has been standing near the bar, sipping from a glass of champagne. The man appears calm, but Poirot senses something in his demeanor that raises suspicion. Poirot steps forward, and the man in the crimson mask immediately stiffens. Poirot, gently, with a knowing smile. Monsieur, I must ask you a few questions. You have been quiet so far. Perhaps you know more than you have let on. Crimson Mask Man, avoiding eye contact. I don't know anything, Poirot. I just came here to enjoy the evening. Poirot. Ah, but you see, monsieur, the way you stand, the way you avoid answering my questions, it tells me that you know more than you wish to admit. The Crimson Mask Man remains silent, but Poirot can see that the man is growing more uncomfortable by the second. Poirot. Do you recognize the man who is lying dead on the balcony? Were you acquainted with him? The Crimson Mask Man's face pales slightly, and he shifts his weight nervously. Crimson Mask Man, hesitating. I knew him. Yes. We had some business dealings. But I didn't kill him. I swear it. Poirot, eyes narrowing. Business dealings? How very convenient. And yet, you are nervous. Why, monsieur, are you afraid? You claim to have had dealings with the man, but you act as though his death is an inconvenience, rather than a tragedy. The Crimson Mask Man looks away, his hand tightening around his glass. Poirot doesn't press him further, but the seed of doubt has been planted. Poirot, to himself, softly. Each of you is hiding something, and each of you will reveal your secrets, one way or another. The camera focuses on Poirot as he looks at the group. His mind is a whirlwind of possibilities, but he knows the key to unlocking the truth is in the relationships between these people. There is something deeper at play here, something that binds them all together. Poirot, addressing the room again. Now, we wait. One of you is guilty, but the truth is hidden in the shadows, waiting to be brought into the light. I will uncover it. It is only a matter of time. Chapter 3. Scene opens with Poirot standing in the center of the room, the atmosphere thick with tension. The guests are seated around the large, circular room, their faces hidden behind elaborate masks, but their discomfort is palpable. The only sound in the room is the occasional cough, the soft shuffle of feet, and the distant murmur of the city outside. Poirot stands tall and unflinching, his eyes scanning the guests, his mind working through every possible scenario. He knows that the key to this case lies in the smallest details, tiny pieces that, when pieced together, will reveal the whole picture. Poirot, addressing the group, his voice steady and commanding. Now that I have questioned a few of you, we must continue. You have seen how I work, how I observe. The truth is not hidden in grand gestures, but in the smallest of movements. The way you avoid looking at me, the way you shift your weight when you speak, all of this speaks volumes. The room falls into an uneasy silence. Poirot's words seem to have a weight to them, and the guests exchange anxious glances. Each of them is wondering when the next round of questioning will begin, when their turn will come to face the detective's sharp gaze. Poirot, turning toward the man in the white tuxedo, who has been standing near the window. Monsieur, you have been very quiet. And I must say, your silence speaks louder than words. You know something, do you not? Something about the man in the crimson mask. The man in the white tuxedo stiffens, his face paling slightly. He stands taller, trying to regain his composure, but his nervousness is obvious. He clears his throat before speaking, his voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. Man in white tuxedo. I don't know anything about him. We only met once or twice, briefly, for business. I had no reason to. Poirot, interrupting, his tone cold. Business, you say? How very convenient, monsieur. You claim to know nothing, yet I have seen your reaction. You are hiding something. You knew him better than you let on. And I believe you knew exactly what he had planned for tonight. The man in white tuxedo's eyes widen, but he quickly masks his emotions, his face hardening into a stony expression. Man in white tuxedo, voice trembling. I told you, Poirot, I knew him, but I didn't kill him. I swear it. I didn't even know he would be here tonight. I came to enjoy the ball, like everyone else. Poirot's gaze is sharp, unblinking. He steps closer, his eyes never leaving the man's face. Poirot, you did not know he would be here? That is where you are mistaken, monsieur. You knew exactly who would be at this ball, and you knew exactly why he would be here. What business dealings did you have with the man in the crimson mask? The man in white tuxedo looks away, clearly uncomfortable under the intensity of Poirot's questioning. He opens his mouth to speak but then closes it, as if unsure how to answer. Poirot, leaning closer, his voice quieter but firm. Answer me, monsieur. You were more than just business associates, weren't you? You had a past with him. A past you were trying to keep buried. And now, your secrets have come back to haunt you. The man in white tuxedo's face hardens, and he turns his gaze toward the floor. Poirot takes a step back, his expression calm but resolute. Poirot, perhaps you will speak more freely later, monsieur. But for now, I must continue with my questioning. Poirot steps away from the man and moves toward the woman in black, who has been standing near the door. She has been watching the scene unfold, her expression unreadable. As Poirot approaches, she straightens, her eyes narrowing slightly as they meet his. Poirot, mademoiselle, you have been quite quiet. But your silence, like all others here, speaks volumes. I believe you know more than you have let on. Tell me, where were you when the scream was heard? Woman in black, with a calm, but somewhat defensive voice. I was near the bar, talking to Mademoiselle in the red mask. We were discussing the music and the performance for the evening. Poirot listens closely, noticing that her voice is steady, but her hands are clenched at her sides. There is something about her body language that suggests she is hiding something. Poirot. And did you hear the scream, Mademoiselle? Did you not feel any sense of alarm when it echoed through the room? Woman in black, avoiding his gaze. I heard it, of course. But it was just a scream. I thought it was part of the performance or a prank. It didn't seem like a reason to panic. Poirot, tilting his head slightly, observing her carefully. Is that so, Mademoiselle? You did not feel any urgency to check on what had happened? Your reaction is strange, almost as though you were expecting it. The woman in black's face stiffens, and for a brief moment, Poirot catches a flicker of something, fear, perhaps, before she quickly regains her composure. Poirot, you knew him, didn't you? The man in the crimson mask. You knew exactly who he was, and you knew what he was capable of. Woman in black, voice trembling slightly. I knew him, yes, but that doesn't mean I had anything to do with his death. I didn't want him here tonight, but I didn't kill him. Poirot, stepping closer, his tone firm and insistent. And yet, Mademoiselle, you had the most to gain from his death, did you not? You wanted him gone, to protect yourself. But now, the question is, did you act alone? The woman in black looks away, and for the briefest moment, Poirot sees a crack in her composure. She takes a deep breath and then looks back at him, her expression neutral once more. Woman in black. I didn't kill him, Poirot. I swear it. But I did wish he would leave. I wanted him to disappear from my life. He knew too much. He had too many secrets. Poirot studies her face for a moment longer before turning away, his expression unreadable. He steps back, pausing as he scans the room again. His mind is working quickly, piecing together the fragments of information. Poirot, addressing the group, his voice calm but firm. I believe I have heard enough from some of you, but there are still many questions left unanswered. The truth is hidden beneath these masks, and I will not rest until it is revealed. Someone here is guilty. Someone is trying to hide their involvement, and it is only a matter of time before they slip up. The guests shift uneasily, their eyes darting toward each other. The room has become a pressure cooker, and Poirot's keen sense of observation is turning the heat up on everyone present. Poirot, tonight, the game is afoot, and I shall not rest until the murderer is unmasked. I will uncover every secret, every lie, no matter how deeply they are buried. And one by one, your masks will come off. Chapter 4. The scene opens in the same room, filled with tension. The air is thick with unspoken accusations. The guests are still seated, some looking anxious, others appearing to be lost in thought. The once grand atmosphere of the Masquerade ball now feels like a prison, a space where secrets are suffocating the truth. Poirot stands at the center of the room, his sharp eyes scanning the guests one by one. His mind is working rapidly, weaving together the tangled threads of lies and deception. His earlier questioning has left him with more questions than answers, but he is not discouraged. He knows that the truth always finds a way to surface, even when it is buried beneath layers of falsehood. Hastings, standing by Poirot's side, watches the guests closely. His face betrays a mixture of curiosity and unease. Hastings, whispering to Poirot. Poirot, it seems that everyone here is hiding something. How do you know which of them is guilty? Poirot, in a soft, thoughtful tone. Ah, mon ami, the key lies in their reactions. Everyone here has something to protect. The murderer is not the one who acts out of anger or fear, but the one who hides behind a mask of indifference, pretending to be a mere spectator. The murderer is someone who knows too much about the victim's past, perhaps, and certainly about the secrets hidden in this very room. Hastings. You think the killer is one of them, right here? Poirot, nodding slowly. Of course. The killer is among us, Hastings. The question is, which one of them will slip up first? Every mask will eventually fall. Poirot takes a step forward, his presence commanding the room. He raises his voice, addressing the guests as a whole. Poirot, his voice clear and authoritative. Ladies and gentlemen, you are all here because of the same reason. A man has been murdered. And I am here to find out why. Some of you know more than you have admitted, and some of you may believe your secrets are safe. But they are not. I will uncover the truth, and when I do, no mask will be left intact. The guests exchange glances, their nerves growing as Poirot's words sink in. Poirot's gaze shifts from one person to another, resting on each face for a moment before moving on. He steps toward the woman in black, who has remained silent throughout most of the questioning. Her mask is elegant, yet her posture betrays her anxiety. Poirot, gently, but with piercing precision. Mademoiselle, you have been quiet. Too quiet. I believe you know more than you are letting on. The man in the crimson mask, did you know him? Was there something between you and him? The woman in black stiffens slightly, her eyes narrowing as she meets Poirot's gaze. For a moment, she says nothing. Poirot watches her carefully, noticing the slight twitch of her fingers as she tightens her grip on the fabric of her gown. Poirot, pressing gently. You feared he would expose you, didn't you? Your past, your secrets. He was a threat to you, and tonight, you decided to silence him. But not with violence. No, mademoiselle. Your weapon was far more subtle. Woman in black, her voice trembling slightly, but she quickly regains her composure. You are wrong, Poirot. I did not kill him. I wanted him gone. Yes. But I would never kill him. Poirot, softly. Is that so? You wanted him gone, but you did not want him dead. But, mademoiselle, you were afraid. Afraid that he would destroy everything you had worked so hard to build. Your mask hides your fear, but I see it, plain as day. The woman in black looks down, her lips pressed tightly together. Poirot can see the hesitation in her eyes. She wants to speak, but something holds her back. For a moment, she stands in silence, her mind battling between the need to protect herself and the inevitable truth that is closing in on her. Poirot, gently. It is difficult, isn't it, mademoiselle? To admit the truth when you have spent so long hiding it. But fear not, the truth will come out eventually. It always does. The woman in black takes a deep breath, her posture sagging with the weight of the situation. She finally looks up at Poirot, her expression a mixture of resignation and frustration. Woman in black, in a low voice. I never wanted him dead, Poirot. I just wanted him to leave me alone. He was ruining my life. I wanted to move on, but he kept coming back, threatening to expose everything I had worked for. I didn't know what else to do. But I did not kill him. Poirot listens carefully, but he knows there is more. He knows that she is telling the truth in part, but there is something she is still hiding. He doesn't press her further, but his mind is already moving on to the next guest. He turns to face the man in the crimson mask, who has been standing quietly near the wall. Poirot, addressing him directly. Monsieur, you are the one who has been the most quiet. And in a room like this, silence is often more telling than words. Tell me, where were you when the body was discovered? Crimson Mask Man, his voice calm, but there is a slight tremor in it. I was near the back of the room, observing. I didn't see anything at first. I heard the scream and saw people rushing toward the balcony. But I didn't get involved. I didn't know what was happening. Poirot, narrowing his eyes. Ah, monsieur. You didn't know what was happening? Or you simply didn't want to know? You were the closest to the victim. You could have helped, but you chose not to. Why? The Crimson Mask Man stiffens at the accusation, his expression faltering for a brief moment. He quickly recovers, but Poirot can see the subtle shift in his body language, the way his shoulders tense, the way his gaze flits nervously around the room. Crimson Mask Man, his voice growing firmer. I didn't kill him. I didn't even know he was dead until everyone started running toward the balcony. We had a past, yes. But that was over. I had no reason to kill him. Poirot, his tone quiet but insistent. Ah, monsieur, you think your past is behind you. But I believe your past came back tonight to haunt you. And when it did, you acted out of fear. Fear of being exposed. The Crimson Mask Man shifts uncomfortably, his face hardening as he glares at Poirot. Crimson Mask Man, gritting his teeth. You're wrong. I didn't do it. Poirot, with a slight smile. Perhaps not. But I shall be watching you, monsieur. Everyone here is hiding something. And I will uncover it, piece by piece. Poirot steps back, his mind still racing with the clues that have been uncovered so far. He knows the truth is closer than ever. He turns his attention to the last guest he has yet to question, the woman in the red mask, who has been watching the proceedings with an unreadable expression. She stands near the edge of the room, her posture stiff and tense. Poirot, walking toward her, his voice calm but assertive. Mademoiselle, you have been quiet as well. And in a room full of people who are nervous, those who remain silent often have the most to hide. What do you know? Red Mask Woman, glancing at Poirot, her voice low. I've told you already, Poirot. I don't know anything more than what has already been said. Poirot stops in front of her, his gaze sharp. He notices the way her fingers twitch nervously, betraying the calm facade she is trying to maintain. Poirot, in a soft but penetrating tone. You may not know everything, mademoiselle. But I believe you know something. Something that could change the course of this investigation. Tell me, what were you doing when the scream was heard? The woman in the red mask takes a deep breath before responding, her eyes avoiding Poirot's gaze. Red Mask Woman, quietly. I was talking to Mademoiselle in the golden mask. We were having a conversation about the decor and the evening's events. But, when I heard the scream, I didn't think it was serious at first. Poirot, studying her closely. Did you not think it was serious? Or did you choose not to think about it? You see, mademoiselle, there is something in the way you speak that tells me you knew more than you let on. You were aware of what was happening, even before the scream was heard. And you didn't act. The woman's face pales slightly, but she says nothing. Poirot watches her for a moment longer, then steps back, his mind working through the puzzle in front of him. He has heard enough for now, but there is still more to uncover. Poirot, addressing the room once more. We are getting closer, my friends. The truth is within reach, and I will not stop until it is revealed. One of you is hiding something, and it is only a matter of time before your mask slips. Chapter 5. The scene opens with Poirot standing in the center of the room, his gaze sweeping over the gathered guests. The air is thick with anxiety, and the tension seems to hang like a storm cloud ready to burst. The guests, now more nervous than ever, shift in their seats, waiting for Poirot to continue his questioning. Each one of them is acutely aware that the detective is getting closer to uncovering the truth, and the masks they wear are no longer enough to hide their secrets. Poirot's eyes settle on the man in the white tuxedo, who has been unnervingly silent. He's been under suspicion for quite some time, and now, Poirot is ready to confront him directly. The tension is palpable as Poirot steps forward, his posture unyielding. Poirot, addressing the man in white tuxedo, his voice calm but unwavering. "Monsieur, I have listened to your answers, and yet, there is something about your story that does not sit right with me. You claim to know nothing about the victim's past, yet you seem too composed, too detached. Perhaps it is time we revisit our earlier conversation." The man in the white tuxedo's eyes flicker nervously as Poirot's words sink in. He straightens his back, attempting to maintain his composure, but Poirot can see through the thin veil of calm. "Poirot, you told me you knew the man in the crimson mask, that you had business dealings with him. But your reaction, your hesitation, suggests there was more to that relationship. Tell me, monsieur, how well did you really know him?" Man in white tuxedo, voice cracking slightly. "I told you, Poirot, it was just business. We had a few meetings, but nothing more. I don't know what you're implying, but I didn't kill him. I swear it." Poirot's gaze intensifies, and he takes a step closer, his eyes never leaving the man's face. The room holds its breath, every eye fixed on the two of them. Poirot, softly, with a knowing look. "Business, you say? But I suspect there was more. There is always more when people are so eager to hide the truth. You didn't just have business dealings, did you?" "No, monsieur. You had something to lose. Something you feared would be exposed." The man in the white tuxedo stumbles backward, his face growing pale. He opens his mouth to speak but hesitates, the weight of Poirot's words pressing down on him. "Poirot, you were involved with the man in the crimson mask in more ways than one, monsieur. He had something over you, didn't he? You feared he would expose your past, your secrets, and so you decided to silence him. But you didn't kill him outright. No, you were too careful for that." The man in white tuxedo's face contorts with guilt, and his hand trembles slightly as he clutches his glass of champagne. He looks away from Poirot, unable to meet his piercing gaze. Man in white tuxedo, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean to kill him, but I did want him to go away. I was desperate. He had the power to ruin me. He threatened to tell everyone about my past, about the money I had hidden away. I couldn't let him do that." Poirot, with a soft but firm tone. "Desperation, monsieur, is a dangerous thing. It clouds the mind and pushes people to do things they would never normally consider. But you were too cautious, monsieur. Too careful. You didn't want to get your hands dirty, did you? So you watched from the sidelines, waiting for the right moment. But in the end, that moment never came." Poirot steps back, his expression calm but his mind racing. The pieces of the puzzle are beginning to fall into place, but there is still much to be uncovered. "Poirot, it is clear to me now, monsieur. You were the one who had the most to gain from the man in the crimson mask's death. You killed him not because of hatred, but because of fear. Fear that he would expose everything you had worked so hard to conceal." The man in white tuxedo's face crumples as he finally breaks down, his emotions spilling over. Man in white tuxedo, sobbing. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I just wanted him gone. I was scared, Poirot. I was scared that everything I had worked for would be destroyed. But now I've ruined everything." Poirot watches him for a moment, his expression unreadable, before turning his attention to the rest of the guests. "Poirot, mon ami, it is not too late to face the consequences of your actions. But the truth will always come out, no matter how deeply it is buried. And tonight, it has come to light. The camera lingers on the man in white tuxedo as he is led away by the authorities, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The rest of the guests remain silent, their faces a mixture of shock and relief. Poirot stands still, his gaze sweeping over the room as he takes in the gravity of what has transpired. Poirot turns to face the remaining guests, his voice calm but filled with authority. Poirot, you see, ladies and gentlemen, the truth was always right in front of us. But it was hidden beneath layers of fear and deceit. Monsieur in the white tuxedo had everything to lose, and in his desperation, he made the fatal choice. But he was not the only one hiding something. Each of you has your own secrets, your own fears, and I will unmask them all, one by one. Poirot's eyes lock onto the woman in black, who is still standing near the wall, her face hidden behind her mask. There is a flicker of guilt in her eyes, and Poirot knows that she is the next piece of the puzzle. Poirot, Mademoiselle, you have been watching this unfold with great interest. But I believe you know more than you have let on. The man in the crimson mask was not just a threat to your past. He was a threat to your future. And tonight, you too will face the consequences of your actions. The woman in black takes a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she steps forward, her voice steady but filled with fear. Woman in black. I didn't kill him, Poirot, but I did want him gone. He was a part of my past, a part one wanted to forget. But I never meant for any of this to happen. Poirot steps forward, his gaze unwavering. Poirot, that is where you are mistaken, mademoiselle. You may not have killed him, but your actions tonight were not those of an innocent person. You were involved, whether you admit it or not. And the truth will find you, just as it has found the others. The woman in black's face tightens, her eyes brimming with emotion, but she says nothing more. Poirot steps back, allowing the weight of his words to settle on the room. Poirot, tonight, we have uncovered the truth, piece by piece. And while one mask has fallen, there are others still hiding behind their facades. But rest assured, the truth will not remain hidden for long. The guests shift uneasily, some glancing at each other, others lost in thought. Poirot surveys the room, his mind still working through the details. He knows that the mystery is far from over, but for now, he has uncovered the man who feared exposure, the one who would stop at nothing to keep his secret safe. Poirot, to himself, softly. One by one, they will all be unmasked. The camera pulls back, focusing on Poirot as he stands tall, his eyes sharp and focused on the remaining guests. The atmosphere in the room is heavy with the weight of the truth that has come to light, and the inevitability of more revelations to come. Chapter 6. The air is thick with uncertainty, but a palpable shift has occurred. The murderer has been revealed, but Poirot knows that the deeper truths still remain hidden. The truth has only begun to unfurl, and now, the puzzle grows more complex. Each guest is left alone with their thoughts, their faces a mixture of relief, guilt, and fear. The atmosphere has shifted from one of intrigue to one of raw tension, and Poirot's sharp eyes continue to scan the room, never resting, always watching. Poirot stands tall in the center of the room, his hands clasped behind his back as he takes in the faces of the remaining guests. Hastings stands by his side, observing the group with a mix of curiosity and concern. Poirot's mind is a whirlwind, piecing together the fragments of the evening's events. He knows that there is still more to uncover. The man in the white tuxedo has been taken away, but the story is far from over. Poirot, addressing the group, his voice firm but calm. Tonight, we have seen how easily the truth can be hidden behind a mask. We have seen how fear, when left unchecked, can lead a person down a path from which there is no return. But there is more to this story, much more. The guests exchange nervous glances, their discomfort evident. Poirot's sharp gaze moves from one person to the next, scrutinizing them. His presence is commanding, and he knows that they are all aware of the weight of his words. The room is heavy with tension. Poirot, his voice soft but filled with authority. Each of you has your own story, your own secrets. But tonight, those secrets will be exposed. The truth, as it always does, will find its way to the surface. And when it does, there will be no hiding from it. Poirot takes a step forward, his eyes focusing on the woman in gold mask, who has been sitting quietly, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She is the one who has been the most composed throughout the questioning, her posture regal and poised. But Poirot knows that her calm exterior is a mask of its own. Poirot, addressing her directly. Mademoiselle, you have remained silent, but you are not without your own secrets. I can see it in your eyes. There is more to you than what meets the eye. You knew the man in the crimson mask, didn't you? The woman in gold mask shifts in her seat, her fingers twitching nervously as she meets Poirot's gaze. For a brief moment, her composure slips, and Poirot catches the flicker of guilt in her eyes. But just as quickly, she regains her poise, her face a mask of calm once again. Woman in gold mask, with a soft, controlled voice. I knew him, yes, but that was in the past. It is over now. I have nothing more to say about him. Poirot, stepping closer, his voice low and insistent. Ah, mademoiselle, but you do have more to say. You see, you are not just a casual acquaintance. You were involved with him, weren't you? Perhaps not romantically, but there was something between you. And I believe it was more than just business. You feared what he would reveal, didn't you? The woman in gold mask freezes for a moment, and Poirot notices the way her breath catches in her throat. She raises her chin slightly, as though trying to maintain control over her emotions. Woman in gold mask, her voice trembling ever so slightly. I don't know what you mean. We were simply acquaintances. It's nothing more than that. Poirot watches her carefully, noting the subtle hesitation in her words. She is hiding something, that much is certain. But Poirot is patient. He knows that in time, the truth will come out. He turns away from her, his eyes scanning the rest of the group. Poirot, addressing the room. Each of you knows something. Each of you has a role in this story. And I will find it. No one leaves until we uncover every truth, no matter how deeply buried. The camera lingers on Poirot as he walks slowly toward the man in the black mask, who has been standing near the door, his posture rigid and his eyes darting nervously around the room. The man has been quiet, observing the investigation with an almost detached air. Poirot's eyes lock onto him, and the man shifts uncomfortably under his gaze. Poirot, his voice cool and calculating. Monsieur, you have been quiet, almost too quiet. You seem to know more than you are letting on. Tell me, where were you when the scream was heard? The man in the black mask hesitates, his eyes flicking toward the other guests before looking back at Poirot. He clears his throat, attempting to steady his nerves. Man in black mask, his voice strained. I was near the balcony, watching the guests. I didn't hear the scream right away, but I saw people running toward the balcony. Poirot, leaning in slightly, his voice softer but no less intense. You saw the body, didn't you? You were the first to see it. And yet, you didn't move to help. You didn't rush to check on the victim. Why was that, monsieur? The man in the black mask visibly shifts, his hand gripping the edge of his mask as though it is the only thing anchoring him in the moment. Man in black mask, his voice shaking. I didn't want to be involved. I thought it was a prank, at first. I didn't know what to do. People started running toward the balcony, so I followed. But I didn't know he was dead until I got closer. Poirot, with a knowing smile. Ah, monsieur, you didn't know. But deep down, you did. You knew something was wrong. And that is why you hesitated. You feared that you might be caught in a lie. You feared exposure. The man in the black mask lowers his head, his shoulders slumping under the weight of Poirot's words. Poirot steps back, observing him closely. He is not yet ready to make an accusation, but the pieces are beginning to fit together. Poirot, turning his attention back to the room. Each of you has something to hide. The web of secrets is tangled, but I will unravel it. The truth is closer than you think, and it will not remain hidden for long. The guests sit in stunned silence, their nerves frayed and their minds racing. Poirot's eyes flick from one face to the next, reading the subtle signs of fear and guilt that lie beneath their masks. He knows that they are all connected, bound together by the same dark thread of deception. Poirot takes a deep breath, steadying himself. The investigation is far from over, and he knows that there is still much to uncover. But he is confident that the killer will slip up, that the mask will slip, and the truth will come to light. Poirot, with quiet determination. The time for hiding is over. Soon, all will be revealed. And when it is, no one will be left untouched. Chapter 7. Poirot stands tall, his sharp eyes scanning the guests, each of whom is now nervously shifting in their seats. The air is heavy with the weight of their secrets, but Poirot knows that the truth is slowly rising to the surface. His mind is a whirlwind, piecing together the intricate puzzle, carefully inspecting the smallest details that could unravel the whole mystery. The guests, some visibly anxious, others pale with fear, are now waiting for Poirot to make his next move. They are all aware of the growing pressure in the room, and none of them is immune to Poirot's unyielding focus. Poirot steps forward, his posture commanding. His eyes briefly meet those of each guest, reading them like an open book. His voice is calm, yet filled with purpose. Poirot, addressing the group, his voice steady but filled with intensity. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come a long way tonight. The puzzle pieces are beginning to fall into place, but there is still more to uncover. A man has been murdered, and the killer is sitting among us. Some of you have tried to hide behind your masks, behind your lies. But the truth will always find a way to surface. Poirot pauses for a moment, his eyes never leaving the group. He can see the fear, the guilt, and the nervousness in their eyes. He knows that one of them is hiding the key to the entire mystery, but the question is, which one? Poirot, with quiet authority. I have spoken with many of you already. I have listened to your stories, your alibis, and your explanations. But I believe we are still missing something crucial. A thread that binds you all together. It is time to take a closer look at the details, at the small things that you thought were insignificant. For it is always the smallest detail that reveals the biggest truth. Poirot's gaze shifts toward the woman in gold mask, who has remained silent throughout most of the investigation. She seems composed, almost too composed. Her calm demeanor stands in stark contrast to the rising tension in the room. Poirot steps closer, his eyes never leaving hers. Poirot, softly, but with unwavering precision. Mademoiselle, you have been very quiet. But your silence, like all of your calmness, speaks volumes. You are hiding something. I can see it in the way you hold yourself. You are trying to maintain control, but it is slipping. You know more than you have let on. The woman in gold mask stiffens slightly, her fingers tightening around the edge of her mask. Poirot watches her closely, noting the subtle shift in her body language. She tries to hide it, but he can see the faintest tremor in her hand. Poirot, you knew the man in the crimson mask. You knew him very well, didn't you? And you knew that he would be here tonight. You knew he had something to reveal, something that could ruin you. Woman in gold mask, after a long pause, her voice shaking slightly. I didn't want him to be here. I didn't want anyone to know the truth. He had information that could destroy everything I've worked for. He was going to expose me. But I didn't kill him, Poirot. I swear it. Poirot studies her for a moment, his expression unreadable. There is truth in her words, but it is incomplete. He steps back slightly, his eyes flickering to the rest of the room. He knows that the woman in gold mask is hiding more, but for now, he lets her words settle. Poirot, to himself, almost inaudibly. She didn't kill him, but she was involved. There is more here than she is willing to admit. Poirot turns away from her and moves toward the man in black mask, who has been standing near the door, watching the proceedings with a quiet intensity. He has been reluctant to speak up, preferring to stay on the periphery, but Poirot knows that he is not exempt from the detective's scrutiny. Poirot, addressing the man in black mask, his voice calm but firm. Monsieur, you have been watching everything closely. You have been silent, but I know you have something to say. You are not just a bystander in this, are you? You know more than you have admitted. The man in black mask looks at Poirot, his eyes flashing with a mix of guilt and fear. For a moment, he seems unsure whether to speak, but then he takes a deep breath and straightens, as though preparing to face the truth. Man in black mask. I didn't want to get involved. I didn't want to be dragged into this. But yes, I knew him. I knew the man in the crimson mask. We had a history, a very complicated history. Poirot, leaning in, his voice soft but filled with authority. Complicated, you say? I believe there is more to your history with him than you are letting on, monsieur. What was this history? What did he know about you that made you so afraid? The man in black mask hesitates for a moment, then lowers his gaze, unable to meet Poirot's unrelenting stare. Man in black mask, in a low voice. He knew things. Things I did, things I regret. He threatened to expose me, to tell everyone about the money I had hidden away. Money that was never meant to be found. I didn't want that information out in the open. But I didn't kill him. I swear it. Poirot listens intently, his eyes never leaving the man. There is fear in his voice, but there is something else too. A sense of resignation, as though he knows that the truth is no longer avoidable. Poirot steps back, considering the implications of his words. Poirot, you didn't kill him, monsieur. But you feared him, didn't you? You feared that his secrets would destroy you. That fear is what drove him to take the risks he did. But it was not you who silenced him. Poirot steps away from the man in black mask, his eyes scanning the remaining guests. He knows that the killer is still among them, hiding in plain sight. The puzzle is almost complete, but there is one more piece that refuses to fall into place. Poirot turns to face the woman in red mask, who has been sitting at the far end of the room, her body language tense. She has been watching the investigation unfold, her eyes darting from guest to guest, as though trying to figure out when it will be her turn to speak. Poirot takes a step toward her, his gaze unwavering. Poirot, mademoiselle, you have been watching all of this unfold. Your silence speaks volumes. Tell me, where were you when the scream was heard? What did you see? The woman in red mask freezes for a moment, her eyes widening slightly at the directness of the question. She opens her mouth to respond, but words fail her for a moment. Poirot watches her closely, his gaze sharp. Poirot, you knew something, didn't you? You knew what was happening before it even happened. You knew the victim. and you knew what he had come to reveal. But you didn't act, did you? Why? Woman in red mask, her voice trembling, but she quickly regains control. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was talking to Mademoiselle in the purple gown. We were just chatting about the music and the evening's performance. But when the scream came, I didn't think it was serious at first. I didn't move immediately. Poirot steps closer, his voice soft but filled with quiet conviction. Poirot, you didn't think it was serious? Or did you already know what had happened? Did you know that the man in the crimson mask was dead before anyone else did? You see, Mademoiselle, there is a pattern here. You knew something. You knew he was going to die, and you knew it was inevitable. The woman in red mask looks away, a slight tremor in her hands as she pulls her mask tighter against her face. Poirot, with a calm but intense voice. I believe you know exactly who the murderer is. And I believe you know why they did it. It's time for the truth to come out, Mademoiselle. The woman in red mask remains silent, her expression unreadable. Poirot steps back, allowing the weight of his words to settle over the room. Poirot, the truth is always harder to accept when it's right in front of you. But tonight, I will uncover it, no matter how long it takes. Chapter 8. The camera slowly pulls back, focusing on Poirot, standing tall in the center of the room. The silence is suffocating, a heavy blanket over the room. His sharp eyes scan each guest, their faces masked in fear and uncertainty. The tension in the room is palpable, each guest now fully aware that the moment of reckoning is near. Poirot's mind works with the speed of lightning, piecing together the small fragments of truth that have emerged, but there is still more to uncover. The masks are slipping, but one more face needs to be revealed. Poirot knows that in the final moments, the truth will be unveiled. Poirot, addressing the group, his voice quiet but firm. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the point of no return. The truth is here, in this room, among us all. One of you is responsible for the death of the man in the crimson mask. But what is more, there is a hidden connection between you all. A web of deception that ties you together. And tonight, that web will unravel. The guests shift uncomfortably in their seats. They are all watching Poirot, each wondering when the next round of questions will come, when they will be forced to reveal their deepest secrets. Poirot knows that they are all afraid of being exposed, of losing everything they have hidden. But he is equally sure that the killer will slip up. The truth will come, even if it's buried beneath layers of lies. Poirot, his eyes narrowing as he scans the room. It is not just the murder of the man in the crimson mask that we are here to uncover. No, it is much deeper than that. There are connections between all of you, hidden relationships, deals, and betrayals. And I am certain that once I untangle the threads of these lies, the killer will be revealed. Poirot steps closer to the group, his presence commanding attention. The guests sit in silence, not daring to speak, their faces betraying their growing unease. Poirot's eyes settle on the woman in gold mask, who has been one of the most composed throughout the entire investigation. She sits with her back straight, her posture as regal as ever, but Poirot knows that she is hiding something. Poirot, addressing the woman in gold mask, his voice soft but piercing. Mademoiselle, you have been quite composed this whole time. But you, too, are hiding something. You knew the man in the crimson mask far better than you have let on, didn't you? And you were involved in something much darker than a mere business deal. The woman in gold mask stiffens at Poirot's words. Her fingers twitch slightly, but she says nothing. Poirot steps closer, watching her every movement, every reaction. Poirot, leaning in slightly. You fear exposure, don't you, Mademoiselle? You feared that the truth would come to light. He knew your secrets, didn't he? Secrets that you've kept hidden for so long. The woman in gold mask meets Poirot's gaze, but her eyes are filled with a mixture of defiance and fear. She remains silent, unwilling to give him the satisfaction of an answer. Poirot, with a slight, knowing smile. You may try to remain silent, mademoiselle, but your silence speaks volumes. It tells me that you are guilty of something. Something that you don't want anyone else to know. And that, mademoiselle, is what will unravel your carefully constructed mask. The woman in gold mask looks away, her lips pressed tightly together. Poirot steps back, his gaze still locked on her, but he knows that she will not break just yet. He moves on, turning his attention to the man in black mask, who has been observing the investigation with a cold, detached air. He seems to be removed from the emotional turmoil that is evident on the faces of the others. But Poirot knows that there is more to him than meets the eye. Poirot, addressing the man in black mask, his voice sharp. Monsieur, you have been calm throughout all of this. Too calm, in fact. You act as though this is all just a game. But I know better. You are hiding something. You knew the man in the crimson mask, didn't you? You knew him far better than you let on. The man in black mask shifts in his seat, his eyes flicking nervously toward the other guests. Poirot's eyes narrow as he watches the subtle shift in his body language. The man is trying to hide something. Man in black mask, his voice low, almost defensive. I don't know what you mean, Poirot. I barely knew him. We met a few times, had some business dealings, but that's it. I swear, I had no reason to kill him. Poirot, leaning in, his voice cool and calculating. Ah, monsieur, you are a good liar. But the truth always has a way of escaping the lips of even the most skilled of liars. You knew him better than you admit. And you were afraid of what he might reveal about you. The man in black mask's face tightens. His jaw clenches as though he is trying to hold back something. An emotion, a confession, something he doesn't want to admit. But Poirot sees it all. Poirot, softly, but with certainty. You were afraid of him, monsieur. He knew your weaknesses, your secrets. And you killed him to keep them hidden, didn't you? But the truth always has a way of coming to light. And you, monsieur, are not immune to that truth. The man in black mask remains silent, his face drawn tight with the weight of Poirot's words. Poirot turns away from him, his mind still piecing together the puzzle. But there is something missing. He steps toward the woman in red mask, who has been sitting in the corner, watching everything unfold with a sense of quiet resignation. She is the last guest to be questioned, and Poirot knows that her moment is approaching. Poirot, addressing the woman in red mask, his voice steady and firm. Mademoiselle, you have been watching, observing, but now it is time for you to speak. You, too, have secrets, don't you? You knew the man in the crimson mask, didn't you? And you knew that his death would change everything. The woman in red mask glances at Poirot, her eyes betraying a flicker of fear. She straightens in her chair, her hands clutching the edge of the seat. Poirot steps closer, his gaze fixed on her. Poirot, you were the last person to speak to him before he died, weren't you? You were the one who could have stopped him, but instead, you chose to let him fall. What were you afraid of, mademoiselle? What secret were you trying to keep hidden? Woman in red mask, her voice trembling slightly. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want anyone to know what he knew. He was going to ruin me. He was going to expose everything. But I didn't kill him, Poirot. I didn't. Poirot watches her carefully. There is fear in her voice, but there is something else as well. A desperation, a need to protect herself. Poirot knows that she is not entirely innocent, but he also knows that she is not the killer. Poirot, softly. You didn't kill him, mademoiselle. But you know who did, don't you? You know who was afraid of being exposed. And you know that their secret was worth more to them than a life. The woman in red mask remains silent, her face pale as she struggles to control her emotions. Poirot steps back, his mind piecing everything together. He knows the killer is still among them. The final mask is about to slip, and when it does, the truth will be undeniable. Poirot, addressing the room, his voice resolute. Tonight, the last mask will fall. The killer is here, among us, and I will not rest until every secret is laid bare. I will uncover the truth, no matter how deeply it is buried. One of you has been lying to me, and tonight, that lie will be exposed. Chapter 9. The atmosphere in the room is suffocating. Tension runs thick in the air as Poirot stands at the center, his mind spinning with the final pieces of the puzzle. He has examined every guest, listened to every story, and watched every movement. Now, the truth is within reach. The killer is still among them, hiding behind their mask of innocence. But Poirot knows it is only a matter of time before they slip up, before their carefully constructed facade crumbles. The guests, all seated in the large, dimly lit room, are tense, their faces a mix of fear, guilt, and anticipation. The murder of the man in the crimson mask has turned their world upside down, and none of them can escape the scrutiny of Poirot's unyielding gaze. Poirot looks across the room at each guest, his sharp eyes never leaving their faces. He knows they are all watching him, waiting for him to make his next move. But Poirot is patient. He knows that the final revelation will come when the time is right. Poirot speaks, his voice steady but carrying the weight of authority. Poirot, addressing the group. Tonight, we have gathered here to uncover the truth. But the truth, my friends, is not as simple as it seems. Each of you has tried to hide behind your masks. Each of you has tried to protect the secrets you fear will be exposed. But the truth will always surface, no matter how deeply it is buried. Poirot steps forward, his eyes locking onto the woman in gold mask. She has remained composed, almost too composed, throughout the entire investigation. There is something about her that has always struck Poirot as odd, but now, as the pieces of the mystery begin to fall into place, he is certain she knows more than she has let on. Poirot, addressing the woman in gold mask, his tone calm but piercing. Mademoiselle, you have been the calmest of all. You have hidden behind your mask of composure, but I see through it. You know more than you've said. The man in the crimson mask wasn't just someone from your past. He was a threat. He was going to expose you, wasn't he? The woman in gold mask's hands twitch slightly, but she says nothing at first. Poirot steps closer, his gaze never wavering. Poirot, you feared his knowledge of your past, didn't you? He was going to reveal everything you had worked so hard to keep hidden. But what you failed to realize, mademoiselle, is that the truth cannot be hidden forever. It always finds a way to surface. The woman in gold mask shifts in her seat, her fingers tightening around the edge of her gown. She glances nervously at the other guests, but Poirot's focus remains solely on her. Poirot, with quiet authority. You knew that the man in the crimson mask would ruin everything you had built, didn't you? And you took action. But not with violence. No, your method was far more subtle. You didn't kill him, mademoiselle. But you were involved in his death, weren't you? The woman in gold mask's eyes widen, and for a brief moment, Poirot sees a flicker of something in her expression. Fear, perhaps, or guilt. But it is gone as quickly as it came. Woman in gold mask, her voice trembling slightly. I didn't kill him, Poirot. But I did want him gone. He was going to destroy everything, and I couldn't let that happen. Poirot pauses, watching her closely. He knows there is more to this, but for now, He leaves it hanging in the air, a statement she will have to come to terms with later. Poirot turns away from her, his eyes now landing on the man in black mask. He has been standing quietly near the door, watching everything unfold with a detached air. But Poirot knows that he is hiding something important. Poirot steps toward him, his voice soft but filled with quiet intensity. Poirot, addressing the man in black mask. Monsieur, you have been the most composed of all. Your silence speaks louder than any words you could have spoken. You knew the man in the crimson mask, didn't you? He wasn't just an acquaintance, was he? You had a past with him, and that past was something you couldn't afford to lose. The man in black mask's eyes flicker, and his face tightens. Poirot steps closer, his gaze never leaving the man. Poirot, you feared him, didn't you? You feared what he knew. You feared he would expose you, your secrets, your dealings. And you couldn't let that happen. The man in black mask remains silent, his face expressionless, but Poirot can see the tension in his shoulders. He knows the man is struggling to keep control, to hold back the truth. Poirot, softly, but with certainty. You didn't kill him outright, did you? No, monsieur. You played a much subtler game. You let others take care of the dirty work, didn't you? You were the mastermind, but you kept your hands clean. But in the end, it was your fear, your desperation to keep your secrets hidden, that led to his death. The man in black mask opens his mouth to speak, but no words come out. He looks away, his face flushed with shame, but still, he says nothing. Poirot, nodding slowly, stepping back. You didn't do the killing, monsieur, but you were complicit in it. You helped create the circumstances that led to his death. And for that, you too will face the consequences. Poirot steps back, his eyes scanning the room once again. He knows that the truth is almost within his grasp, but there is still one more guest to question. The woman in red mask, who has been sitting silently in the corner. She has been watching the entire investigation unfold, her face a mask of quiet resignation. Poirot knows that she has her own story, and it is time to uncover it. Poirot walks toward her, his voice steady but filled with purpose. Poirot, addressing the woman in red mask. Mademoiselle, you have been observing everything closely, but you have said very little. You, too, are hiding something. The man in the crimson mask, he was not just someone you knew from a distance. He was someone who had a hold over you, wasn't he? Someone whose death was necessary to protect your own secrets. The woman in red mask's eyes flicker, and she shifts in her seat, her face betraying a mixture of guilt and fear. Poirot can see that she is not prepared to face the truth, but it is too late for that now. The truth has already caught up with her. Poirot, his voice soft but filled with a quiet certainty. You knew the man in the crimson mask. You were involved with him in ways you have yet to admit. And when he threatened to expose you, you knew what had to be done. But you didn't do it alone, did you? You had help. The woman in red mask stares at Poirot, her lips trembling slightly as she tries to maintain her composure. Woman in red mask, her voice breaking. I didn't kill him, Poirot. But yes, I was involved. I couldn't let him ruin everything. He had too much power over me. I didn't know what else to do. Poirot watches her for a long moment, considering her words. She has confessed to her role, but there is still something more she is not saying. Poirot knows that there are more pieces to this puzzle, but he also knows that time is running out. Poirot, nodding slowly. You didn't kill him, mademoiselle. But you were complicit in his death. You played a part in the web of lies that led to this moment. Poirot takes a deep breath, stepping back from the group. The guests remain silent, their faces a mixture of guilt and fear, but Poirot knows that the truth is almost fully exposed. Poirot, addressing the group, his voice clear and firm. The time has come. The truth has been uncovered. The killer is not just one person, but a web of fear, desperation, and secrets. You all played a part in this tragedy. Some of you were more directly involved than others, but in the end, it was your collective actions that led to the death of the man in the crimson mask. Chapter 10. The room is heavy with silence as Poirot stands at the center of it all. The guests, each one seemingly bound by their own secrets, stare at him, waiting for the final reveal. The tension is unbearable, but Poirot remains composed, his mind sharp and focused. The last threads of the investigation are coming together, and the final piece of the puzzle is within reach. One by one, the masks have slipped, but now the final truth must be unveiled. Poirot steps forward, his eyes sweeping across the room. He pauses for a moment, taking in the faces of each guest. The guilt, the fear, and the nervous energy are palpable in the air, but Poirot is undeterred. He knows that tonight, the truth will finally emerge. Poirot, addressing the group, his voice steady but filled with quiet authority. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the final chapter of this mystery. The truth is no longer hidden behind your masks, no longer buried beneath your lies. Tonight, I have uncovered your secrets, and tonight, I will expose the killer among us. He pauses for a moment, his gaze moving from one guest to the next. Each person in the room shifts nervously, their faces betraying their anxiety. Poirot knows that the final revelation will bring an end to this night of deception. Poirot, you all know the man in the crimson mask was murdered. But what you don't know is how deep the roots of this mystery go. It is not just about one life lost. It is about the consequences of hiding the truth. The murder was a result of fear, guilt, and the desperation to keep hidden what should have been revealed long ago. Poirot turns his attention to the woman in gold mask, who has been sitting quietly through the investigation. She has revealed bits and pieces of the truth, but Poirot knows that there is still something more beneath the surface. Poirot, addressing the woman in gold mask, his voice measured and firm. Mademoiselle, you feared the man in the crimson mask. You feared what he knew, what he could reveal. Your past, your secrets. He had the power to destroy everything you had worked for. And tonight, you acted to protect yourself. The woman in gold mask's eyes flicker for a moment, but she remains silent, her face composed. Poirot, you knew him, mademoiselle. You knew him well enough to understand the danger he posed to you. You didn't want to kill him, but you were complicit in his death. You are as much a part of this tragedy as the one who struck the final blow. The woman in gold mask lowers her gaze, her lips pressed tightly together. She has been exposed, and now there is nothing left to hide. But Poirot moves on, his gaze shifting to the man in black mask, who has remained silent throughout the investigation. He stands near the window, looking out at the night, as though trying to distance himself from the situation. Poirot, addressing the man in black mask, his voice cold and penetrating. Monsieur, you, too, played a part in the death of the man in the crimson mask. You knew what was at stake. You knew the damage he could do if he exposed you. You did not kill him directly, but your actions led to his death. Your silence, your indifference, these were your tools. The man in black mask shifts slightly, but does not respond. Poirot steps closer, his voice growing firmer. Poirot, you were complicit in this murder, monsieur. And like the others, you feared what he knew about you. The fear of exposure pushed you to act, to protect yourself from the truth. The man in black mask stands still, his eyes hardened. Poirot takes one last look at him before moving on to the woman in red mask, the last guest to be questioned. She has been watching everything unfold with a quiet, resigned expression. But Poirot knows that her role in this mystery is just as significant as the others. Poirot, addressing the woman in red mask. Mademoiselle, you, too, are not innocent in this. You knew the man in the crimson mask. You knew what he was capable of. You knew he held the power to expose your secrets. And you knew that you had to stop him. The woman in red mask looks at Poirot, her eyes wide with fear. She shifts in her seat, her hands trembling slightly as she grips the edge of her chair. Poirot, you didn't kill him, but you were part of the plan. You allowed him to die, knowing that it was the only way to protect yourself from his revelations. You were afraid, and in that fear, you allowed the truth to be buried. The woman in red mask looks away, unable to meet Poirot's gaze. She knows that there is nothing more to say. She has been exposed. Poirot steps back, his eyes moving over the entire group. The room is still, the air thick with the weight of the truth. But Poirot knows that the final moment is here, the moment when everything will be revealed. Poirot, addressing the group as a whole. The time has come for the final revelation. The murderer is not just one person. It is a collective web of fear, desperation, and self-preservation. Each of you played a role in the death of the man in the crimson mask. Each of you had something to protect, and in your fear, you allowed him to die. But now, the truth is out, and no one can hide from it. Poirot pauses for a moment, allowing his words to sink in. The guests sit in stunned silence, their faces pale as the realization washes over them. Poirot turns to the authorities who have been waiting at the door, signaling for them to step forward. Poirot, these people, each of them, is guilty of complicity in the murder of the man in the crimson mask. They feared exposure, and in their fear, they allowed him to die. But tonight, the truth has come to light. The masks have been removed, and the killer is unmasked. The authorities move forward, but Poirot doesn't move. He stands still, watching as they begin to escort the guests out of the room. The guilt and fear are palpable in the air, but Poirot knows that justice will be served. Poirot, to himself, quietly. The truth is always the hardest thing to face, but it is also the most important. And tonight, the truth has set us free. Thank you for listening to this mystery unfold. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more classic cases and new investigations. Until next time, keep your mind sharp and your eyes open.